What's going on, family? We are back, episode 8, Humbletalk podcast. It's Feast as always. And as you can tell, we outside again. It's not nighttime, don't have the fire going, but we outside. It's too nice to be in the house. It's a little breezy, cars are riding by, but we're going to try to make do with what we got. So, hope everybody's having a good day. Spring's here finally. Everything's starting to look up. Not that really there's a whole lot of winter in Texas anyway, but it's glad to see that it's finally starting to warm up a little bit. So, welcome back and let's get right to it. So, 4 people went to Mexico. 2 died, 2 came back. Shaid Woodard, Zendale Brown. Rest in peace to those 2 Americans that lost their life in Mexico, seemingly over nothing. But I do have a perspective on that, and so it's kind of want to touch on that for a second. Now, to get to my experience, which is what I want to talk about, let's kind of go over a little bit of what they're saying happened in that situation, and then let's kind of work our way through. Now, they said that they were from South Carolina. They drove down to Mexico. They went into Matamoros, Mexico, where instantly when they got in, they were kidnapped. There seems to be a video of sorts showing them being kidnapped or whatever the case is. They go where they need to get to. Actually, let me backtrack a little bit. There was gunfire in their direction. The 2 that didn't make it seemed to have got hit beforehand, and then everybody was pushed into a vehicle. They were, then taken to another location. They were tossed around from location to location to enable themselves to stay hidden from law enforcement or whoever would happen to be looking for them. And they ended up being found, later on. Like I said, 2 didn't make it, 2 lived. On, I believe, Thursday, the 2 survivors, I believe, were sent up to U.S. diplomats. And, everybody who survived seems to be back in the States at this point. The cartel came out and said, hey, we're sorry, it was a misunderstanding, whatever the case may be. I don't know if I believe that excuse, that statement at all, but that's what they're saying. And so I believe that's what, at least for now, what the general consensus is that this was just a mistaken identity thing. I'm not trying to say that there was any wrongdoing, but I do think that it's odd. This is my opinion. I do think that it's odd that 4 people that are from South Carolina who seemingly didn't know much about Mexico, not saying that I could prove that, but it just seemed the way the movements were. It just seemed like they were kind of in no man's land, and so I do think that it's interesting that this all happened just by coincidence. Again, there's no talk of any illicit activities or anything crazy like that, so I'm not trying to put that narrative out, but I've been to Mexico multiple times, and yes, while I do agree there is a different vibe in Mexico, there are things that go on in Mexico, from a law-wise and just from, the street side of, cartels and things like that. The lawlessness, I guess we could call it. I do understand that, like, sometimes things do happen, but I just think that it's weird that it happens so quick. I think it's weird because a couple things. One being that just because they're Americans doesn't mean that you're necessarily a target per se. I mean, I guess there are people that can target you anywhere, but if that's the case in the United States, you can be a target as well, if that's the case. It says that they were in a minivan. Now, nothing about a minivan to me says that, like, these are the people that we need to take and we're going to get some ransom or we're going to get something from these people. So I'm not sure what the issue would be there, right? Like, unless you told me that they were out there and they had a whole bunch of jewelry on and they were just out there being flashy, then I could kind of be like, okay, I can understand that. But if you're in a minivan, you're not in a high dollar vehicle, you're not, flashing a lot of money, jewelry, stuff like that. It's kind of hard for me to look at that and go, okay, well, all right, I understand. So they are looking into arresting more people over in Mexico. I'm not saying that the cartel did it because I'm just not that guy to say the cartel did it, but I do think that there's a possibility that there was something else going on. Possible. South Carolina is a long drive. And if you went, and if the young lady that went, if she went for a cosmetic procedure, I can make the argument that the money it would have taken you to get into that van and drive all the way to Mexico from South Carolina, you could have took that money and put that with whatever money you already had and probably got that done somewhere in the States. Whatever it was, whatever the procedure was supposed to be. That's a drive to from South Carolina to Mexico. That's not down the street. That's not even like 4 hours down the street. That's easily 8 hour drive. Easily. So again, I'm not casting any aspersions. I just think that that's very interesting that this whole um, set of events kind of taking place, and now there's a whole lot of questions as to what's going on, what's not going on. I'm not saying that there's an issue, but it wouldn't surprise me if it came out that there was something else attached to this situation. Wouldn't surprise me. I hope it's not, and I hope this is just a rare situation where, you know, there's some guys across the board that got overzealous a little bit, and they kind of jumped the gun on the situation, and maybe it was mistaken identity, maybe it was, you know, whatever. And if that's the case, 100%, like, I 100% see that. I hate that that's the situation, if that's the situation, but I don't know. Certain things just don't add up. The information is starting to come out about their GPS location, and they were, as you can track the vehicle, you track the vehicles down to a road. They get to a road where their actual appointment is, and it's to the right. The part of the account says, well, for some unknown reason, they turned left, and that's with the GPS on. They turn left, so your GPS was taking you right, and you turned left. Now, you turned left and got to this area that's kind of desolate. There's not a whole lot going on around there. Well, that just seems funny that if I'm a stranger to an area, I don't know where I'm going. I'm not secure because I'm out of the country. I'm literally a tourist. I'm going where I need to get to, and I'm going right back to where I feel comfortable, especially if I don't have a guide or I don't have somebody that's a contact person that's there to help me along the way, to teach me what to do, what not to do, what I can and can't do. So that right there, again, along with other little information, that's kind of just, it makes you a little weary, makes me a little weary as to what could possibly be a motive or some type of misunderstanding when, hey, maybe it was fine until you made that left, and maybe there was no plans to attack you guys. Maybe that area that you turned into, just kind of maybe sightseeing or whatever it could have been, was just on the wrong street. Because there are places, hell, there are states in the United States that are like that. Hey, you're in the wrong neighborhood. They're gonna stop your car, figure out what's going on. So I don't know, but I hope everything gets lined out in that situation. I hope everybody gets some type of closure that's needed in this situation, because there is some incomplete households at this moment based on the things that have happened. And, you know, hopefully it's a learning lesson for people that do want to venture out and do have that thought that they're going to just go out and just figure it out as they go. And it's really kind of a learning lesson for me, I guess, in a way, because I'm one of those guys that's like, hey, like, I don't fear much. Hell, like, if I feel like going somewhere, I'm going somewhere. You know, I've had little run-ins in situations like that as well, but, you know, luckily, thus far, I've been on the positive side of them and everything like that. But the reason why I feel like I want to have this conversation, or a little bit of my opinion on the situation, is because just through my travels, I've been to Mexico multiple times, and I guess this is where we'll kind of like segue into a little bit of a story time, but it'll kind of bring you back to where we are at the beginning. The first couple times I went to Mexico, they were like the vacation spots, right? Like the Cancuns and all that type of stuff. Everything there seems fine, right? They're tourist destinations. There's police everywhere. There's, you know, they tell you, hey, like, watch out for these people. These people are doing this, the scams, whatever's going on. They tell you that. And so when you go there, even though you may not have a guide, or you may not have somebody who is showing you the ropes, these companies and, you know, that you travel with, they tell you, hey, be careful for these things, and you kind of already have an understanding. And if you come from a certain environment, you kind of can feel the vibe a little bit too, right? The vibe just feels like, okay, these people feel a little sketchy. Okay, let me get away from them, or whatever the case may be. You may decide to deal with these people still. You may decide, you know what, like, I don't mind punching on something out the country, and that might be, you know, that might be fine. Hell, I've been in situations where it's like, you know what, like, the family might feel a little sketchy, but hey, like, I think I'm gonna punch on boy if it's a problem. So I'm gonna go ahead and go holler at him and see what he got to sell or whatever the little scam is. Let's go check it out. Then I've also been to Mexico, like, away from the tourist destinations, and I've been there with people that I know, and the inner states of Mexico where there's not so much tourists there, and it's ran by different people and different entities, if you understand what I'm saying. So some good friends of mine went to Mexico, and they said, hey, do you guys want to go to Mexico? And so we're like, yeah, we packed up, went to Mexico. Well, um, we rode with them, and it was like maybe I think it was two vehicles of us, and we're riding. We go through San Antonio. We get outside of San Antonio, and we go in across the border into a little town called Piedras Negras. I think I'm rolling my R's right, I believe. And so right when you get there, you kind of understand as you're pulling up to it, to the border, that it's different. Some of these guards have masks on and everything like that. It's just a weird vibe. And so we get across and everything's fine. Well, because it's a border town, you don't really feel, you can tell you're in a different place, but the vibe doesn't feel different. Well, in this little town, everything is okay for the most part, right? I'm not saying that for sure, but again, you're not far from the border. Like, worst case scenario, hey, turn and haul ass back to the border and figure it out when you get there. Well, to get out of that little town, you have to go to this little station, this little substation, buy like a permit, and then you show the guards at outside the gate of or the area of this town to get deeper into Mexico. So you go sit in this long line, you get your ticket or whatever, and you go. Well, we get there and we're driving, and you're just driving, right? We finally get to where we're going. Monclova is where we went to. Nice little city. I love it personally. But you can tell when we're there that it's just different. The police are riding around 6 deep. There's 2 guys with AR-15s in the back of a pickup truck. They have masks on. You know what I'm saying? It's a whole different vibe. It's not hey, to serve and protect. It's like, hey, like, we just out here just because we just outside. And not saying that you don't feel safe, but it tests your level of comfortability in yourself, because a lot of people can handle themselves in situations where they have control or they have an understanding of their environment. It's when you lose control of your environment and you have zero understanding of your environment is where you start to question yourself as to where you are, what you can and can't do. And if nobody tells you, like I said, you're just kind of in bad shape. And so I remember this one incident in particular. We're riding around, mind you. We stopped at this little cart on the side of the road. And I love it because New York is like that. They have food trailers and vendors everywhere. But they had these little taquito things. I don't know what they're called, but they have these little taquito things. And I swear, like, it's the best Spanish food I've ever had. Like, no salsa, nothing. You just eat them like that. And I mean, like, they were getting about a dozen. So we got some, and, like, they were, amazing. Like, I don't have fingernails. I think if I had them, I'd probably eat those off too. But back to the store. We're riding, and we pulled into a grocery store. And then we're in the grocery store, getting stuff or whatever. And as we're coming out, there's like an army truck driving through the parking lot, and there's like trucks and trucks of these armed guys, police or whatever they are, just right through the parking lot. This is regular. And so, it's, again, these are moments where you're like, everything feels okay. It might look okay, but then there's like, all right, I got to remember, like, this isn't the States. This is Mexico. We leave the parking lot. We're driving. I'm in the passenger seat. One of my good friends is driving, and he's from there. So he's kind of, we're going to visit his people, and so we're under his care, so to speak. We're driving, and as we're driving, I look over and I see a cop car. And I look at the guy, and one of the cops has a mask on. The other cop doesn't have a mask on. The cop with the mask looks over at me. We kind of lock eyes for a second, and me not thinking nothing of it because, hell, I'm here, the right way. I'm legit, the whole problem. No issue. So we just keep driving. But I happen to say something to my buddy subconsciously. I just happen to go, man, like, that guy sure do like staring over here. Randomly. So we pull up to the light. and the cop happened to be like 2 lanes over, maybe like a car behind us. He happened, just through traffic back and forth, he happened to get close, get up close enough to the window where I can kind of look over and see him. Well, by the time we get to the next light, he's next to us. They're literally like right next to us. And so as we're sitting there, I look over again, and now they're both looking over. And I go, man, that's crazy. Like, I go, and I tell my friend again, I go, man, they're right here right now. He turns over and he looks. And he says, okay, all right. And he turns back quickly, and he's just looking straight the whole time. Light turns, we get down to the next light. This whole way we're driving to this next light, they're literally like right next to us the whole time. They're just looking back and forth, looking. Now, my buddy drove at the time. He drove a new Silverado. And it definitely stands out, in Mexico. You know what I'm saying? Like, not to say anything about it, but it just stands out. It's shiny, it was silver, it had Texas plates, right? So it definitely stood out. And so we're getting up to the next light. They're still in the exact same spot. I look over, they're still looking. So the light turns green. He's in a straight lane. We are. The light turns green. He goes straight like he's about to go through the light, and then makes a sharp left turn. While they're in traffic and they have to go straight, he makes a sharp left turn and he takes off. And I noticed, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like, all right, that was a rough situation. And that's when he told me. He said, look, listen, you have to be careful, because even the police here might work for somebody. Just because those lights behind you are the police and you're supposed to pull over doesn't mean that they're not pulling you over to extort you, or they're not pulling you over for somebody else to pull up on you, or whatever the case may be. So I thought that was an interesting statement, because prior to this happening, as we were talking in the grocery store, I made a comment to him. I said, hey, man, I like it down here. Like, yeah, we might come down here on our own one day. And he turns to me, and this is why I'll always respect him. He turned to me, he goes, hey, I don't know if it would be safe for you to come down here. And I said, okay, cool. I drive a truck as well, but my truck it's lifted. It definitely doesn't look like it's from Mexico. And that's not, again, I'm not trying to say that as a derogatory term, but people who've been there understand what I'm saying. And so he's like, I just don't think it'd be a good idea. I'm not saying that you can't, but I just wouldn't be a good idea. And then immediately after he says this cop issue happens. And so, man, you're like, all right, cool, like, things happen sometimes, you know what I mean? Not saying that I wasn't paying any mind, but, it's just kind of one of those things where you kind of note it. Like, okay, note it. Later on that evening, we go to the spot where his parents stay, where he grew up at, and we're hanging out in front of the house or whatever. Well, his nephew comes. His nephew wants to go to a party. And we're hanging out, and his wife's brother, who's from the state, or who lives in the States, he's like, hey, I'm going with you. So me being the person I am, hey, look, like, if you're going, I'm going. I don't know where we're going. I don't know what I don't know my way around here, but I'm not letting you go by yourself. So if you go, I'm going. So we get up and we walk over. We were maybe there an hour and a half, maybe. We come outside, and when I say there is nobody outside, I mean there is nobody outside. There's nobody outside talking, leaning against the wall. There's nobody on the stoop talking. There ain't cars riding by. There is nothing outside. It is a ghost town outside. And we actually got a ride. Literally just like a 5-minute walk. But they didn't want us to walk 5 minutes down the street. I'm the type of person where, like, hey, as long as I know where I'm going, or I know how to get to where I got to, I can get back. That's who I am. But instantly I was told, like, hey, like, this ain't that place. You just can't randomly just walk down the street here, because even though you may mean well and you may be minding your business, there's other people who govern this place that don't have sirens and badges. So I say all that to say, man, like, Mexico and other places in general that's in the world, like, hey, like, you got to be careful. The way you operate in the States, you can't operate in these other places. Even if Mexico is attached to the United States, even if, the United States does have a relationship with Mexico, some of these countries don't have relationships with the United States. that we travel to. You know what I'm saying? You have to be very cognizant of where you are and where you are on that totem pole at the time that you get there, because your overconfidence may land you in a situation that may just be the end of you sometimes, or you just may be effed up real bad. So, I mean, I love Mexico personally. This is just me. I love Mexico, but I mean, those situations definitely put a not a sour taste, but a realistic perspective on what goes on that they don't tell you about, necessarily on TV, or what's not being promoted and pushed out to the masses. Because of course, like, you know, they want the money. They need that money. Everybody's not the United States. A lot of these countries, they need that tourism. They need those things. And so, um, like I said, prayers up to everybody in that situation. I hope everything gets rectified the best way possible. I mean, I know there's death and there's no coming back from that, but just the best way that everybody can find some closure in the situation. I hope everything goes that way. So, next, check this out. My boy Takashi 6ix9ine got beat up in the LA Fitness in Florida, and I'm here for it. I'm 100% here for it. Now, now, this is what I have to say before like I kind of like say what I know I need to say. Takashi 6ix9ine's a snitch only because, and it's just my opinion, you were the ringleader of a situation, of a group of guys that was involved in some bodies, some robberies, some extortions, shootings. All this is by your hand, either directly or indirectly. Either you were calling for it, or they were defending you, and they felt that's the way they needed to take it to protect you and your image and what y'all were carrying together. You now go to jail, and then you decide to tell everybody gets football numbers. You do a couple years, or not even a couple years. You do some time, and then you come home. You come home as if you never left. You come home talking crazy. You come home threatening people. You come home talking that talk. Like you about that action. And for the most part, you've been very lucky and very secure in the way you've been moving, so nobody deals with you a certain type of way. When you first came home, it was super duper security. It was witness protection type of stuff. They put you in this neighborhood, that neighborhood. You kind of shunned all that, and you've been out here moving about freely. But you've still been antagonizing people. You've still been putting disrespect on certain people and their situations and things like that. And to be realistic about it, like, you just can't continue to do that and think that nobody is going to take that opportunity to have some retribution, to get some get back. Now, my personal opinion, do I hate that it happened? Nah, I'm good with it. I'm good with it. Like, I'm the type of person where, like I said before in a couple videos prior, like, hey, like, if you told whatever come to you, you gotta take that. If you out here being disrespectful, you gotta take what come with that. You got to, rainbow hair or not. And on top of that, it feels great out here. I'm sorry for the pause. But on top of all that, you have to understand that you're also somebody that people really don't like, and you're famous. So you have to understand that, like, hey, like, people are going to get a name off of doing something to you because of the things that you've done. You have to know this. So when you're out in public, you have to have some level of decorum about yourself. And when you don't, and you just decide that I'm untouchable because I am who I am, or because I got money, look, that don't mean nothing to people. Again, I've gone over this before. So for me, hey, it looked like a guy was in the gym. 6ix9ine came into the gym. One of the guys called his buddies. Either they caught him in the bathroom, or he ran into the bathroom trying to get away from those guys, and they put the beats on him. Supposedly he went to the hospital, and he's got some cuts and all that type of stuff. They kicked him real good. They think a rib may be broken. Again, they didn't kill him, which it could have gone super duper bad, but some guys will crash out for very little. And what I mean by that is they don't mind doing the time. And the reason why I say that is because I've seen the video of almost the whole incident. They showed a guy at the door of the gym. They showed the guys come in. They showed them making the beeline across the gym. They show faces. These guys don't have masks on. So these guys mean business so much that they don't even care about whatever the consequences are going to be. And if not for nothing, a part of the video of the bathroom beating, you can hear the guy keep talking about his crown. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but about Latin Kings. Now, you were a part of Nine Trey, a blood gang in New York City. That situation deteriorated, mostly due to you. And now, why is it now that there seems to be another gang, Latin Kings, not even the Bloods, Latin Kings seem to be the ones to put hands and feet on you for being disrespectful. Not everybody plays by the rules that you play by. Period. Not everybody plays by those rules. You have to be aware of the games you're playing when you play with people, because there are people who have nothing to lose, and their life is predicated on the respect they have with the people around them. And when you test that, they feel the need to have to respond. They don't care about none of that. They don't care about that. So hopefully he's learned his lesson. I'm willing to bet every dollar in my bank account that he didn't learn his lesson. And I think that this may be open season now that people see that, hey, like, he can be touched without consequence, or without consequence from him. What's going to happen is they're going to prosecute these guys. They're probably going to talk to the feds because that's who he was going to move him around, or try to talk to him about moving around. He may end up somewhere way different. He may end up in California somewhere. He may end up in Vegas somewhere, to be quite honest, because he's doing it to himself. But at the same time, the feds have to protect their investment. You don't decide as a cooperator when you're done talking to the feds or to the police. They decide that. And when they decide is whenever they decide. So when they call you and they want to find out what's going on in the situation, it's your job to tell. If not, you're impeding with an investigation. Hey, you know what? You're on federal probation or parole. So, hey, we can just revoke your situation and you can go back to jail if you don't want to talk. It's simple. It's very simple to get him to speak. One, he wants to talk. He's proven that already. He wants to talk. He has no problem with talking. The second thing is they have a whole legal setup that they can just send you back to jail because they feel like it. They can hold you. They can just take you and hold you until you feel like talking, and then let you back out. There's ways around it. So trust and believe there's going to be more to this situation than him taking this L and it just going away. That ain't happening. That ain't happening at all. At all. So, including the fact there was a girl that worked at the gym. She seemed to let those guys walk right in. So there's going to be jobs lost. There's going to be a whole shebang. This is going to be a whole big thing all over a guy who just can't seem to stay out of the spotlight, or understands that the only way he stays relevant is by being in the spotlight. Because let's be real, like, once you start telling, I don't care about the music you make. Once you start telling the people that really would have rode for you, the ride or die guys, got to go. So now all you have left is these niche guys that feel like, oh, well, when I see him, I'm going to do this. Some guys don't even think about it like that. Some guys just think, hey, look, man, like, whatever happens to him, happens to him. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. He ain't tell on me, but just the principles I live by. Like, bro, like, whatever happens to you, you got to eat that. I'm cool with it. You're not going, I'm not doing no RIP posts. I'm not doing none of that. It's like, if something happens to you and you ultimately get out of here, you just got to get out of here. It should be a cautionary tale. And I don't believe that everybody should live that way. I don't believe that everybody has to live by the same rules that I happen to live by, or a lot of guys that I know live by. But if you say you are who you are, and you portray to uphold a certain type of standard, then when the time comes, I just expect you to hold on to that. Now, if you come out from the beginning and say, hey, look, listen, this is not who I am. I just live here. I just happen to live in this environment. You know, I play the flute and the cello. I don't know nothing about nothing. Cool, by all means. Like, you know, at least there's an understanding at the beginning, you know? So I just thought I had to throw that in because I don't want to say I was excited, but I definitely, like, watched the video back a couple times. And I definitely watched it with a certain smirk on my face that I probably wouldn't have for anybody normally, be it that I'm kind of chilling at this point in my life. But yeah, definitely. Um, yeah. Lastly, So for this week, we're going to skip this last humble talk portion. I kind of just want to talk to y'all for a second. Uh, it's been a lot of stuff going on, but I want to say to each and every one of y'all, man, that I appreciate everything that y'all are doing. You know, I may not get so many comments, I may not get so many replays and stuff like that, but I'm out here in the street. People who watch these know I'm outside all the time. I'm around. I'm usually 99.9% of the time I'm by myself. I'm approachable. You can come see me about something if I'm saying something crazy, if I'm saying something that you guys like. I definitely appreciate the time that people walk up to me and they give me that vote of confidence. They give me kind words. They give me, sometimes it's even criticism, right? Like, because let's be real, like, this is episode 8, right? As you get better with time, like I said before, there's things that may sway here and there, that may be some changes or whatever. Again, I definitely got some things in the works, but I appreciate that. You know what I'm saying? So please, hey, if you would, tell a friend to tell a friend. We're gonna take this thing to the next level. I want everybody that's tuned in to take this ride with me to the next level. I want to have fun together. I'm definitely gonna be doing some videos out the country on vacation. I definitely have some different um, setups that I'm going to be trying. I have some different backdrops. I have some different areas that I'm going to be. Um, but I definitely, like I said, everybody, every single person who's stopped, gave me a good compliment, bad compliment, hell, watch the video. Man, I appreciate it, because what doesn't kill me makes me what? Stronger. Episode 8, Humble Talk Podcast. It's your boy Feast, out.